The last 6 months have laid bare fundamental gaps and inequities within our societies and between them. As with climate change, those who have the least are impacted the most. That's why last spring, Canada worked with Prime Minister Andrew Holness and Secretary General Antonio Guterres to convene a high-level meeting to discuss how leaders around the world could work together to close these gaps and build a better, more equitable system that works for everyone. On September 8th, finance ministers gathered to discuss these options and the recommendations for the short, medium, and long term. The most promising ideas will be taken up within existing IMF and World Bank processes, as well as at the G7 and G20 leaders' summits later in the fall. Then, in December, we're going to have the opportunity to meet again to discuss the progress we've made. Because we understand that right now we have to fix urgent problems, but in the long run, we also have to fix the system so that it works for everyone. To eliminate this virus anywhere, we need to eliminate it everywhere. While scientists work around the clock to develop a vaccine, as governments, we have the responsibility to ensure it'll be distributed quickly and fairly around the world. This is an important initiative, and I encourage other governments to join in as well. We need to work together, and not just on vaccines. Canada believes that a strong, coordinated response across the world and across sectors is essential. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset, for a reset, for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change. Building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining our momentum on reaching the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the SDGs. Canada is here to listen and to help.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
Now is the time to think what history would say about this crisis. What is it that would make it so that history would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset?
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate, and rebalance our world.
When the only constant in life is change, you need to be ready. This is the Man-Made Survival Show.
Hello everyone, my name is Jose Prado with Man-Made Survival. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel and watching this video. It's really important that you share this video with your friends and family because this is the second video to the series of videos that I'm doing about the Great Reset and this dark winter that I believe is going to be the vehicle that they're going to drive us into the Great Reset. So it's really important that we talk about this. So please share this with your friends and family. We're still trying to get to the 1,000 subscribers. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to this channel and share this video in your social media so other people can have this information. This information can reach them, and not only that, it can tell them exactly what to do in order for them to be prepared, because it's very important that we start preparing for this, because we cannot take this laying down. There's a lot of things that we can do, and if we were all preppers, this community of preppers was a lot bigger, that had a foundation system where we were all very grounded in, it would be very difficult for any globalist or any country to really break us down so easily as they have with COVID-19, which is something that we're going to be talking about today. And it's really important that you stay all the way to the end so you can understand exactly what's happening and exactly what you need to do about it. All right, so please share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. If you're on Parler, I'd really appreciate it that you're watching the videos. I'm having really good turnout on Parler, which is really great for me, and it's really great that the videos are getting out there better than, you know, YouTube and Facebook combined. So that is really amazing. Also want to tell you that if you're on Brighteon.social or Brighteon.com, please subscribe to the channel, share the video, share it with your friends and family so they can also get this information. And you're listening to this on the podcast, whether you're in a speaker platform or you're in iHeartRadio or Apple Podcasts, whichever method that you're listening us to, or any country out there, because there's very many countries that listen to this podcast. I would really appreciate if you share this with your friends and family as well. All right, so I want to go ahead and get into this podcast because this information that I'm going to share with you is really important, because there's several aspects that we're going to be talking about, but the main one is going to be about food. All right, I'm also going to be talking about COVID-19, but it's not going to be in a great detail because it's something that has been going on for 10 months. So I don't really need to give you a lot of details on that. You already understand what's going on. But what I am going to do is I'm going to be sharing a video from the World Economic Forum so you can understand how the globalists think, how people who go to the World Economic Forum, when they come together, whether they're companies or they're a government, agency or people, whatever the case may be, they're coming together, they're putting these plans together, and then once they go home, they're implementing those systems, which is the reason why we have seen such a big, what would be the right word? Such a big enthusiasm on controlling the pandemic, quote unquote. All right, they're seeing it as the greatest risk that humankind has ever met, when in reality it's not that bad. Depending on who you ask or who it hits, but in reality it's not as bad as they want to make it out to be. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the video, or actually I'm going to go ahead and show you the video that I'm talking about the World Economic Forum, because this is how they want to really manipulate medicine under the Great Reset. All right, like I mentioned, a minute ago in the previous video, this series of videos is going to be about the Great Reset and the Dark Winter and the methods they're going to be using in order for us to go into the Great Reset. So this is what they're going to do with the coronavirus. This is the opportunity to take in. Here's that video.
Common Pass is a platform that lets people safely and securely collect their health information, whether it is a negative COVID test result or eventually a record of a COVID vaccination, manage that information, control it themselves, and then be able to let that information be used to demonstrate that they have had a negative test or they have been vaccinated so they can get on an airplane or travel to another country. For countries, it gives them the ability to actually know confidently that this person who wants to come visit them can actually safely be admitted into their country without risk of exposing other people in the country to COVID. If you put yourself in a traveler's shoes, people want to travel, but they don't want to, and frankly shouldn't have to hand out their sensitive health information to every airline they want to fly, every country they want to visit, every airport they want to travel through. And so I think the balance that needs to be achieved is to say, hey, how can we give, let's say, a country or an airline the comfort they need to know that this person is safe to travel or safe to enter a country without having to reveal sensitive health information. So it's the East African community, which is Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, and South Sudan constitute the East Africa community. What led to this was their desire to restart trucking. And 4 of those 6 countries are landlocked, so they're entirely dependent on deliveries from their seaports, the 2 countries that actually do have access to the ocean. And so a few months ago, they focused in on this challenge of how can we actually allow trucks to start crossing our borders to keep the supply lines open. And so Common Pass, in many respects, grew out of our collaboration with this East African community, initially focused on a solution to allow truckers to cross those borders.
All right, so you heard the information that they were talking about in the video, all right? It's very important that you had to listen to it. Coming straight from the World Economic Forum, so there can be no, this is a conspiracy theory and crap like that they've been saying now that this information has come out. All right, so what's up with the Common Pass? In order for you to travel, in order for you to go anywhere outside of your pretty much your country, and they want to force it down to your area, you're gonna have to have this pass where it shows that you have been vaccinated and you have actually been tested negative. All right, that way you can get on an airplane, you can actually travel. All right, for one, that's already destroying the airlines, but they're getting bailed out by the government, so they don't really care about that since they're already getting the money anyways. But the point that I'm trying to make is that if they're talking about you already being vaccinated, what would be the purpose of this pass, right? If they're already mobilizing, or they're trying to get into the hands of other countries in the millions of doses of vaccination, what is there to fear about the coronavirus? I mean, we have vaccine. That's the one miracle thing that we're waiting for, right? I mean, we already have this company that came out that said it is 94% effective against coronavirus. When are they going to use it? We have no idea. But funny thing that they actually made the announcement after the mainstream media appointed Biden as the president-elect. The point is that they already have all these plans in place. It's just waiting for the right time. All right, they're just running. They have the ball, and they're just waiting at the clock for you to be desperate enough for you to beg for it, so you can go ahead and get on with your life, so you can go ahead and have some type of normalcy. All right, in some areas, things are okay. Things are kind of normal. I mean, you do have to go into the restaurants and the stores and everything like that with a mask on, but it's not like you have the police on top of you. Other places within the United States and abroad, the police, is being right there on you all the time, making sure that you have your mask on, and in some cases arresting people and getting violent. We have seen that out of Australia, we have seen that out of New York, and out of California. So there's places in the United States that's actually being very strict about it. But the point is that they want to push you to the point where you are begging for the system to change. That is the whole purpose of this whole reset. As I mentioned in the previous podcast, all right, the way that they're going to make you beg about a new financial system is by destroying the one that we have already. All right, by having hyperinflation, not just in the United States, but all throughout the world. It doesn't really matter where you are. Throughout the entire world, they have had problems with the financial system. They're in debt as well. More than we are more debt than they are, but just with a little bit of debt that they have, they're imploding. Okay, the only reason that we have not, as I've mentioned many times in the past, is because we have the Federal Reserve printing a lot of money. So now with this video, all right, with this forceful reset, they're gonna use coronavirus as the vehicle to take us there. But that is not the only thing that they're gonna use. They're also gonna use the food, which is something we're gonna get into in this podcast, which is why it's important for you to get prepared and really pay attention to the number of people who are being affected. Because if all of these people would have been preppers 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, okay, they would be in a much better shape right now than they are, or they would be in a much better shape right now if they would have prepared. But since they haven't, they have suffered the consequences for not preparing. So we have to do something about it now. All right, so now they have had some timelines. They're saying within the next 10 years. And as we're gonna go through these articles and through this podcast, you gotta understand that for some people, it's not gonna be possible to make very many preparations within the next 10 years because they're suffering a lot from it right now. But the point is that when there is some type of relief from all of this, that's when you need to jump on the horse and you need to go ahead and hurry up and get prepared. And not just focus on one thing. You have to make sure that you're well-rounded, that you cover all your bases, right? And then you move on to the next thing. But let's get into this article that I have for you. I did read this article to you in the previous podcast, but I do feel like I need to read it to you again so we can get an understanding on this entire thing that we're going to be talking about today. Now is the time for a great reset. That's from the worldeconomicforum.org. There are many reasons to pursue a great reset, but the most urgent is COVID-19. We must build entire new foundations for economic and social systems. The level of cooperation and ambition this implies is unprecedented, but it's not some impossible dream. In fact, one silver lining of the pandemic is that it has shown how quickly we can make radical changes to our lifestyles. almost instantly. The crisis forced businesses and individuals to abandon practices that long claimed to be essential, from frequent air travel to working in an office. Likewise, populations have overwhelmingly shown a willingness to make sacrifices for the sake of healthcare and other essential workers and vulnerable populations such as the elderly. Clearly, the will to build a better society does exist. We must use it to secure the Great Reset that we so badly need. That would require stronger and more effective governments, though this does not imply an ideological push for bigger ones. And it will demand private sector engagement every step of the way. The third and final priority of the Great Reset agenda is to harness the innovations of the Fourth Industrial Revolution to support the public good, especially by addressing health and social challenges. All right, so pretty much what this article is telling you is that they really like that crises push people to a certain direction very quickly. All right, it's kind of like the herd mentality. When there's a pack of, sheep, whatever it is, when something scares them, they just separate, they go different directions, and then it's just up to the wolf to chase the ones that are running slower, right? And then they eat those. All right, this is the same principle that they're talking about in this article. They're saying that since they saw that people freaked out about the pandemic, there's a lot of things that they can do. They can take advantage of this. So what else could they actually think about to let's say spread out or maybe break out a war or something like that would push the people even further into the reset, to accept the reset, to force them into giving up their privacy, to force them to not own anything in order for them to beg to be in the system. All right, because remember in the previous podcast, I read you the article that said that people were not going to own anything, but they did divide the people into two. One, the people who were in the system that had everything for free, and they were pretty much, surveillance 24/7. But then there were those that were outside of the system that were pretty much very poor in their own little communities, that were living in abandoned houses in a 19th century style villages. All right, so they're making the comparison. If you want to be in the system, then you have to give up all these freedoms, but you're going to be okay, right? You're going to have everything for free, and you won't lack anything because everything's free. But if you don't, you're going to be outside of the system, and you're going to have to fend for yourself. So with that in mind, the whole pandemic thing that's been going on, Biden did come out and he said that he's going to put together a team, and he did put together a team of people that is going to pretty much advise him on the pandemic, whether or not to lock down, whether or not to have mask mandates. And, some of the things have been backtracked because they did receive a lot of heat. I don't remember the guy's name, but the person who was talking about lockdowns, he's saying, yeah, we need to lock down for 6 weeks so we can, bring down the numbers in the pandemic again, yada, yada, yada. All right, same old story. And then people were freaking out saying, no, heck no, we're not going to do that. And then he backtracked. Then the other one was about the mask mandates. They're saying, at first they were saying everybody in the country is going to do it. And then they're like, okay, maybe we're just going to talk to the governor, see if they're going to implement it in their states. Yeah, it's possible that the Biden was only saying that because he was doing the campaign, fooling people into voting for him, or he actually meant it. I guess his time will tell if he's actually the winner of the election. Still, it's in the air. We don't know. But the possibilities are there. We have to look at it, all the possibilities we have, and we have to prepare accordingly. All right, so right now what I'm going to give you is several headlines because I don't want to get too much into detail on this because it's something you've been saturated 24/7, not only by the mainstream media, but also by the alternative media, by, everywhere you look, COVID-19. So I don't want to do that to you. I want to focus on the more important stuff, which is the next section of all of this. And it's going to be about the food and how they're going to control you with the food and how the Great Reset wants to reset the food. The first headline says, Biden faces tough choices whether to back virus lockdowns. That's from apnews.com. Nations in crisis, COVID crisis increases in all 50 states for first time in a new infection hits single-day record. That's from The Sun. A season of disappointment and depression as COVID-19 rages into holidays. That's from yahoo.com. Before Biden inauguration, 70,000 more people could die from COVID-19 in the U.S. That's from faith.trust.org. Leap of faith. Some churches choose to continue indoor services. That's from sacramento.cbslocal.com. Can Biden convince red states to wear masks? That's from yahoo.com. Oregon, New Mexico order lockdowns as other states resist. That's from apnews.com. Oregon Democrat Governor Kate Brown orders new unrest lockdown will be enforced by police. Okay? And I want to come back from that real quick, and I want to say, I hope you listened to the podcast that I did about how easily the police are going to be used by the government. Again, I'm going to say that here very briefly. The police is the first line of defense for the government against you, the citizen of the United States of America. We the people, you and me, all right? The police is going to be the first line of defense. And as I've said in the past, I am not anti-police, but I'm not blinded, to the reality that the government is going to use the police to enforce the mandates and policies and whatever else that they have in place. And the police are going to do their job because they have a job to do. And in the chain of command, they have to listen to their superiors. Okay. Now it's really easy. The slogan for the police has always been the thin blue line, right? Is the thin line that separates chaos from peace. But I've said here, all right, I want to say that I've coined it first, that it's easier for a blue shirt to turn into a brown shirt, or that the line between a blue shirt and a brown shirt is even thinner than the thin blue line. It can turn on you very, very quickly. Okay. I do have a video for you that I want to show you because I have talked to people about this issue about coronavirus, because they've said, Trump hasn't done anything right. This pandemic is a disaster, yada, yada, yada. I sit down very calmly and I tell them, okay, you give me you tell me what Trump could have done differently. You tell me what Biden is going to do differently that Trump didn't do. All right. And most of the time they just sit there, they think about it, because I give them the facts. We did have a lockdown for 6 weeks. They did shut down bars. They did shut down restaurants. They did shut all these businesses. We did have to wear a mask everywhere. What else can be done? Short from getting the vaccine done, what else can a Biden administration do differently? And they didn't have an answer, because there's not very many different things, which is what the video that I'm going to show you is going to prove. All right. So here's that video.
In addition to these very disturbing numbers that we talk about a lot, we also had the news from Pfizer on Monday. So it's a very strange juxtaposition to see those two data points. We need a bridge, obviously. We can't just sit around waiting for the vaccine. But this does make it a little different than we felt 3-4 months ago, maybe. What should we do right now to try and get the current wave under control, in your view?
Well, it's going to be a while yet before the vaccine is distributed to everyone. So we really do need to rely on many of the same measures for the next several months, which includes masking, social distancing, staying outdoors as much as possible versus indoors when you're around other people, staying away from crowds, getting tested. And finally, if a contact tracer calls you up, please cooperate with them, because what they're trying to do is figure out if you've been exposed, if others have been exposed, how it's spreading in the community, and how we can best contain it. So those measures remain really at the center of the response here.
If we did shut down, like one of your, another person on the council, Dr. Michael Osterholm, for 4 to 6 weeks, I can imagine that would work, I guess, in terms of COVID, but would it be similar to March? Is that being considered? Do you think it's a good idea to do that? What's your feeling?
Yeah, I want to be careful and say that is not the opinion of the Biden-Harris team. As a group, really, the consensus is that we need a more nuanced approach. We've learned a lot since the spring, and we can be much more targeted geographically. We can also be more targeted in terms of what we close. So I think of this as a dimmer switch, not an on and off light switch. So some of those higher risk places are, for example, restaurants, bars, and gyms. whereas schools are not zero risk, but they're much, much lower risk, and they're an essential service, really. And so I think we need to close only those things that really are contributing to the spread, and really try to let as much as possible remain open, like schools, if they're not contributing to spread.
All right, so what answers did she really give us? None, right? Because she's saying pretty much what we have to do is exactly the same. The only thing that they would change, instead of doing a nationwide lockdown, they would look at it state by state. But ultimately, it's going to be up to the state's decision whether or not they're going to close. I mean, California, they're going to close in a heartbeat. So will New York. Some other places. Oregon has shut down. New Mexico is thinking about it. Other places are thinking about it. But overall, the states don't want to do it because they understand what the financial repercussion of that was. And the person on that show, the guy that you've seen on there, that show is about finances, and he sounded like he wanted to ask that question, but he was told not to ask it, right? Because what is the lockdown going to do to the country? It's going to be even more devastating. It's going to have more people on edge, all right, and it's going to make life more difficult. Again, all this is to push you to the Great Reset. Now, Dr. Fauci came out and said a few words that I want you to listen to, because he's pretty much telling the American people to put away your independent spirit, because now it's time to do what you're told. And I got this headline from menrec.com, and that's also where I find that video. Here it is.
Prepared enough so that it doesn't become a catastrophic outbreak.
So we didn't do very well this time.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
So how do we, more specifically, how do we avoid or mitigate, the next one?
Well, there are a number of things we can do. First of all, we've got to think globally. Pandemics are global, so we have to pull together globally. There's a thing called the Global Health Security Network, or agenda, that was established several years ago. We need to strengthen that. We need to strengthen our international collaborations. We need to have people speaking to each other in surveillance. It's got to be open and transparent. When you do that, you can detect it early and respond early. Scientific approaches, technologies, are going to allow us to do what we did with this outbreak, rapidly make a vaccine. We can do even better than that, but you can't do science alone. It's got to be public health and classic science.
So are there countries that there are countries that seem to be doing well that then weren't doing so? Are there countries now that hold up as models for, pretty good response to this?
The answer is yes, but right now it seems that every country is suffering.
Yeah.
We are often compared with countries that are not comparable to us. We are not a little island of 5 million people that we can shut off. We're not a country that would accept if a ruler tells us, you must do this. I was talking with our UK colleagues just today who were saying the UK is very similar to where we are now in outbreak, because each of our countries have that independent spirit, but we don't want to be told what to do. Well, I understand that, but now is the time to do what you're told. And I think it really is something that we should be doing right now.
All right, so you heard what Fauci said, right? But really pay attention. Go back and listen to that video. Go back to the beginning of the video where he said that we did a terrible job, and go to the part where it said, do what you're told. That's where I made that connection. Because on the first part of the video, the person asked him, did we do a good job? And he says, no. But let me remind you, all these guidelines are his. Everything that we did was his. The only thing that we did not do, or the Trump administration didn't do, was actually force people, China style, to stay at home. That's the only thing that they didn't do. All right, it got pretty rough right there in the first few months. But then as the summer came along, and now to the point that we are now, it hasn't been the same as we were in the beginning. All right, it did calm down a little bit, depending on where you are. Okay, but that to Fauci, what he wanted, he explained it like the United States is not a place, or the UK, where people get told what to do by a dictator or somebody in power. But in Africa, they do. That is the reason why the video that I showed a minute ago from the World Economic Forum, where they tested it, they're saying that it was because they wanted to get the truck drivers across the border so they can resupply the country. But I call BS on that one, because they understand that on those places, the government tells them what to do and they have to do it. There's no buts about it. Their way of governing is totally different from the United States. Very, very different. Right here, we're not going to tolerate someone just saying, hey, do this because we told you to. But that's what Fauci wants. That's what he told the people, or he wants to tell people, that it's just time for you to shut up and do what you're told, like you're some type of dog or whatever. And all this is hypocrisy because of the next sound that I have for you. Lockdowns for thee, but not for me. Newsom Pelosi attend dinner parties while U.S. COVID cases explode. That's from Zero Hedge. And I just want to give you the headline, because pretty much what it's talking about is that when the Democrats pretty much held a dinner party that was going to welcome the new people who got elected, right, to this past election. And they call it hypocrisy because they're telling people to stay home, to stay locked down, to stay apart, 6 feet, no more than 5 people in the room. They're telling people right now that for Thanksgiving, they don't want more than 2 families or more than 10 people, 6 people, something like that. But they can congregate, 20s and 30s and 40s of people, and they don't see a problem with it. And not only that, they're not even wearing a mask. That's why Nancy Pelosi had to come out and apologize for having that dinner, and they ended up canceling one of those dinners. So this pure hypocrisy from all of them. All right, so that's as far as I want to get, or that's as far as I want to go with this whole COVID-19 thing, because I have a lot more stuff to talk about, especially about the food. Hello everyone, Jose Prado, Meme Survival here. So here's the deal. I had stayed up pretty late tonight to edit the video for the podcast in the morning. And that video ran for 1 hour and 15 minutes. So once I added the videos and the articles and everything, it really pushed it too far out to where the video was just simply too long. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting it in half because I don't want the information to get lost, for the simple fact that the video is too long. I don't want people missing the second half of pretty much what this video was. All right, so I split this video in half, or technically 1/3 to 2/3 of the video. So now that you listen to this podcast, really pay attention to the next one, because I believe that's the most important one out of, this part series that I've done so far. So I apologize for cutting the video like this, because it does seem like I'm going to continue talking, and then here I am, staying up late, editing videos. But the point is that I wanted to let you know what was going on, so you didn't see that the video just suddenly ended. So again, I hope that you share this information with your friends and family, because this information is really important for everyone to understand, for everybody to know exactly what to do. And as I mentioned in the previous podcast, I'm going to make a video, or I'm going to make the last podcast is going to be what you can do to prepare for this entire global reset that they're doing. All right. We don't have to sit here and take it, because there's a lot of things we can do, not just politically, but also as far as personal prepping, okay? And we have to come together as a community. All right, again, my name is Jose Prado, and remember, always ready.
The Man-Made Survival Show.